Going back a few years now, after the birth of my first son, I began to get migraines once a month while I was ovulating. So I went to go see my doctor. I know her as someone who truly does care, and she was wonderful with me through other conditions. During the visit, I told her that I was starting to get migraines and that they lined up with when I was ovulating. Well, she didn't have much to offer for support. She didn't seem interested in the correlation with my menstrual cycle. She just told me if the migraines continue to get worse, we can try stronger medications in the future. She said there was no way to stop the migraines, only to manage the symptoms, and that was that. I just remember staring at her in disbelief. I felt invisible in that moment. Like everything I said just didn't matter. That if at that moment I decided to take this to heart, that there was no hope, and I was now stuck with a new chronic health condition. I felt confused because I was so sure there would be a solution, or at least more testing offered. And mostly, I just felt let down because this woman, who I do respect for her help with so many other health conditions, had no support to give in this moment. I understood in my heart that this disappointing and disheartening interaction has happened to so many other women. And so many times we have been left feeling unheard, alone, and without hope. I grew up seeing pain normalized, having a mom with chronic migraines, having to tough it out, sisters with periods bad enough to miss school, and eventually me with these postpartum migraines. I remember, even as a child, seeing this pain disrupting our lives and refusing to believe that it's just the way it is. I still sometimes question, who am I to think differently when so many people are told there's not a good solution for the pain? I wasn't shown anything different in those around me. It was like there was a spark or a bug inside of me. This little bug was, and always is, pushing me to ask more questions and to explore and research to the next deeper level of any topic. I have always loved to ask questions, and I love to spend time alone to think and process what I discover. I think this is a big part of why I didn't accept the answer I was given and chose to keep digging instead. Growing up, seeing these chronic conditions greatly influenced my life path. I remember getting books and learning everything I could about herbs and energetic healing in my teens and my early 20s. My mid-20s, I discovered Taking Charge of Your Fertility and Tony Weschler's work. I would try to share my discoveries around hormonal health with everyone around, to mixed reception. It wasn't until later in my life, when I was pregnant and deciding whether to continue with the time-consuming administrative job or switch it up to have more time with my children, that I took the leap to study in a healing career. I have always loved combining complementary therapies alongside conventional healthcare. And I was excited to be able to take a hobby I had found a decade prior, reflexology therapy, into my professional life. So I studied this, and then I certified, and I kept studying. Amongst other things, I took advanced training in fertility support, primarily because of this fire that was lit so many years ago from finding Tony Weschler's work. I was in the middle of this training when the migraines were starting to get bad. I knew there was a connection between my menstrual cycle and my migraines. So I asked the question, how could I use my fertility support training to support these migraines that were happening to me? To my amazement, using some lifestyle, diet, self-reflexology therapy, and energetic healing techniques, it took me 2 months to get rid of these migraines, and they've been gone for good. I felt like I had unlocked something amazing. All of that dismay I felt from the visit with my doctor turned into concern. How many women were being told there was no hope? being told, let's just manage the symptoms the best we can. So who am I to think differently, to dare to hope, and to believe that the best outcome is possible? I still don't know why I have this little bug inside nudging me to always go deeper. But I know I'm someone who asks a whole lot of questions and who has an unshakable sense of hope.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you feel? I know before we hit record, you were like, how are you feeling now?
You're okay. Yes.
It's always...
It's out there. It's in the world.
Yes. This emotionally uncomfortable podcast is about doing emotionally uncomfortable things. And even this story it talks a lot about emotional discomfort. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that discomfort is in, I wrote down normalizing pain, right? This emotional discomfort of how as a culture we normalize pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. And yet when we choose, I wrote down as well, like why I didn't accept the answer. When we choose like, that doesn't work for me, or there has to be another way, choosing ourselves and choosing to seek a different path is also emotionally uncomfortable. But on the other side of that is ease. And like you said, like pain-free. So I'm curious your relationship with those emotional discomforts. In general, what is that to you?
I think I feel it. I definitely am not exempt from feeling emotionally uncomfortable, but I've seen what happens on the other side of pushing through that. And it's always worth it. It's always worth experiencing and feeling that. I think for two reasons, because on the other side of that is where amazing things happen. That's where I found relief from a chronic condition that I was told I could only manage. Mm-hmm. But that's also where you find amazing life experiences. You can find amazing journeys, travels, connections with other people. Mm-hmm. Through pushing through. And it's just been continually reinforced throughout my life.
I want to talk about trust and how we can, we trust these experts, right? Professional experts. And I always say to people, like, these are our experiences and we cannot judge other people's experiences. And I'm a huge believer in Western medicine and Eastern medicine and everything else in between, and healing and looking holistically, and whether we call it outside of the box, but it's also just asking yourself those questions. But there was that moment when you approached somebody that you trusted, somebody that has not, that has really supported you in the past. And yet maybe you were asking questions that were outside of this person's expertise. Mm-hmm. And yet we have a belief that this is their expertise because we put them on a pedestal that they're supposed to know everything. What is that like for you when you're like, I really trust this person, but I can see that this specific person does not have this answer for me?
Yeah, I learned a lot from that interaction because we do expect them to know everything. And that's a lot. It's that pedestal, but it's also a lot to put on a person. And I know they feel pressured to have all the answers as well. So I have a lot of empathy towards the professionals in those situations because they are trying to meet people's needs the best they can. But if they haven't been exposed to other options that aren't really taught in a lot of their conventional training, it's maybe too much to expect for them to know that those are options that are there.
Yeah. And I know in my own health journey, having a professional that did not necessarily know the other things that I was doing, just say to me, I'm not familiar with that, but if it's working for you and it feels really good, keep doing it and trust that. There's nothing more disappointing than when you do have trust in somebody and they completely discount other things that you're trying. even though it feels like it's working for you. Yeah. And I think that comes back to self-empowerment and self-trust, which is something that I know I'm a huge advocate of, and didn't even know that that was something that I was teaching until when I work with people and I always ask, what do you think you should do? And I always like, what feels aligned to you? What feels right? Like, you tell me that first, and then I can give you feedback on it, or then I can give you an idea, because we're so used to shooting on ourselves or living for somebody else or other people's values and beliefs, which is an indicator that we do not trust ourselves. When you learn to trust yourself, that's where the magic happens. So curious, your thoughts on that.
Oh, our bodies are amazing communicators. Amazing. If we tap into what is being communicated to us, we can have so much insight into both how like conventional medications are supporting us or not, but also what else in our life could be, better managed to support us. And our body's giving us that constant reinforcement. We do something that's good for our body, whether it's a mindset shift, a diet change, and our body's going to tell us, hey, now you get more energy. Now you get less stress and anxiety. We're constantly getting that feedback. Yeah.
I want to talk about healing for a minute and pull back, maybe talk about some pink elephants in the room. So I would identify you as I'm going to say healer, whatever the modality is, or somebody who guides others through a holistic path, teaches them these skills. But when I say healer, in my experience, because people have said that to me as well, especially when you're into the world of energy or spiritual growth, things that you can't see, people will identify you as a healer, right? And you're like, yes, but it took me a while personally to let go of the belief this strategy is going to fix all of my problems. But if I personally if I'm giving all of my power away to a physician, or if I'm giving all of my power away to the quote unquote healer, and I'm not taking any radical responsibility for the healing that I get to receive, I truly don't believe it's going to work. It doesn't matter if you are using energy healing, if you're using hypnosis, if you're using acupuncture, if you're using whatever you're using, or if you're taking medication, therapy, physiotherapy, anything that you are doing. I truly believe that if your belief is, I'm broken, this is not going to work, I'm never going to change, nothing's going to work for you. So I'm just curious your thought of the co-creation of that relationship.
I think it's interesting you use the word fix. That word is a huge thing that comes up. I do not like the word fix. As a healer, I do not fix people at all. People don't come to me expecting to be fixed, because that implies that someone else is doing all of the work for you. And what a lot of the practices I'm working with do is they help to switch your body or nudge your body into a healing state. So they're helping you to unlock your body's own ability to heal. And it happens inside. It's nothing I can't force healing on you. You have to be willing to accept it. I have clients who do more, energetic or meditative practices on their own, and they see faster results because they're allowing for those energetic shifts and for the body to shift into its healing mode more quickly. And I have made a big shift myself in my practice away from clients who are coming to me for that 1 hour and then going back and living their lives the same way and expecting things to change, because they'll always feel good, but they'll only feel good for 3, 4, 5 days, maybe a couple of weeks if they're lucky. Yeah. But then they're right back in my door. So that's not healing, that's maintenance. And that's no different than being prescribed, a pill to take that helps you sleep when you have a migraine. It doesn't fix the root cause. So I've really shifted towards helping to support people to make those changes that provide long-term relief.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to live this whole crazy different life. Sometimes you make changes for a short period of time that are a bit more challenging. But I think ultimately we can make fairly small shifts to help to continue the healing process.
Yeah. I find you can see it rather quickly of somebody's resistance to healing or to solving a problem that they're seeking. So, it's always the intention, right? It's the intention behind it. And I remember when I was receiving Western, modalities or process through my healing journey, immediately I had resistance to that process because of my belief systems and my values. And I remember going into it and just having to surrender and say, like, just the intention of like, this is going into my body. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like having deep, deep gratitude, because in that moment, I didn't really have the privilege of choosing because I waited too long. And it was like, you got yourself here, like you need to own that, but your body was trying to send you signs for a long time and you just chose to neglect and discount. So the only thing I had control of in that moment was my attitude in receiving. And then after, I could pick it up and choose different modalities and way of being. But okay, so let's talk about hormonal migraines. And anyone listening to this, I mean, for some, hormones is something that they're into already. Sometimes they've never even considered it. I feel for some reason, women's health is like just being mainstream, talking about hormones and periods and cycles, regardless if you have one or not. And it's not uncommon for a medical physician to not understand or just, managing symptoms. So the belief that you can actually relieve these migraines, I think is deeply ingrained in a lot of people. Like, this is just the way it is. Like I have to live with this. What I really appreciate about your story is you didn't accept that. So where do you think that belief came from, where you were like, there has to be another way, in that attitude?
That is a good question. I can remember as early as like 6 years old, seeing my mom suffer and being like this can't be the way it has to be. With the hormonal support specifically, I remember when I discovered that, we do have these hormone fluctuations throughout our cycle, and we can use our cycle as, and you've heard like the sixth vital sign, as a clue to our health, and starting to be able to track and know, okay, this is ovulation. These are the effects it's having on my body. Menstruation, the effects it's having on my body. It blew my mind. I had no idea. Like, we're not taught any of those intricacies in school, about how much of an effect these natural hormone cycles have on our body and what happens when they're out of sync. So, seeing the PCOS or the dysmenorrhea, like the heavy bleeds, and have them also dismissed as just another thing you have to deal with. But I had been learning about those and how those do have a way to better support and manage them by honoring your body and those hormonal cycles. So I think I had that background. By the time I had that interaction with my doctor, I had been tracking my cycle and my basal body temperature for almost 10 years. Wow. At that point. Like, I knew my body. And I knew something was off because it wasn't just the migraines. I was also having mid-cycle bloating. I was also having mid-cycle fatigue, other things that don't follow that natural flow of what you are kind of meant to be experiencing it with those particular hormones. Yeah. So there were other clues there as well, which, you know, my doctor didn't have the tools or the knowledge to identify. So I knew there was more there to explore.
I love how you say I was very attuned to my body. Like, you knew you had that relationship already. And I feel like that's something a lot of women and humans in general are very disconnected, because we're seeking connection from other people. We don't know how to communicate. We don't like how to create and cultivate that connection. And your body is your home. Your body is the vessel. And when you start to connect and learn the language of being able to understand what's going on, then you can advocate for yourself. There's a comment that you made about your body's ability to heal itself. And can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe even like the science background, like the science perspective of how the body is designed to physically heal itself, and how we kind of sabotage the healing.
So an area that a lot of these energetic healing techniques that I use work on is that connection between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. We have our sympathetic, the fight or flight, the active on reactive stage. And we have the parasympathetic, which is your rest, restore, and healing phase. So a lot of us are busy, we're stressed out, and we're stuck in this mode where our body's forced to be active and reacting to that around us. When we're in that mode, it creates higher levels of cortisol in our body. When we have those higher levels of cortisol, it kind of hijacks some of the hormonal processes in our body, which can lead to the less than ideal function of like our reproductive hormones, like progesterone and estrogen, among many, many other things in the body. When we can switch that off, our body gets a break. It gets time to start to repair some of these, both like the hormonal like ratios or balances in the body, but also just to repair our body's tissues, to start to digest food more effectively. It's almost like we can nudge our body into that state, but we're just allowing our body to get into that healing state by saying, no, it's okay to turn off for a bit.
Yeah.
Which is easier said than done. Yeah. But that's one of the main processes to help with hormonal healing.
As you're saying this, it reminds me of co-creation, right? Like you're co-creating with your body to heal itself, right? You're like, I'm going to give you a little bit. I'm going to ignite. I'm listening to the symptom. I'm taking action. I'm implementing. I'm not avoiding. I'm not discounting. And I'm just going to nudge you a little bit. And I feel like part of that process is trust, right? And it's a long game. It's not, like you were saying, it's not an immediate fix. And then when you do feel the relief of the symptom, it's not necessarily that the system is back to its natural setting. Like it's like, yes, it's working. You have to keep going. Where I see people getting stuck is they get the relief and then they stop. So I always tell people, if you're living in your red zone, right? Like it could be a health red zone. Just because you've implemented something, the pain has gone away and you're feeling like you're in your green, that's where those habits, need to be kept up.
Definitely.
What is your like definition of, or belief around people restoring to the natural setting of their body? Because there's a lot of cultural beliefs around the older you get, like the crappier your hormones are, menopause needs to be horrible. I'm thinking of like I come from a therapy background, so I'm thinking about emotional well-being, how people talk about their problems, but they don't actually have, which I'm all about talking. You need to get it out and communicate it, but that isn't a coping strategy. And if your body is still in this fight or flight state, so that's why I love the energetics of it, because you're like, sometimes I don't know what's going on. I just need to like get that relief from my brain so that I can get to a natural setting. So curious your thoughts on that.
Well, our bodies are not designed to give us pain and discomfort. The pain and discomfort we feel.
Say that again.
Our bodies are not designed to give us pain and discomfort. When we experience pain and discomfort, it's our body communicating to us that something is off.
Yeah.
So it's not the hot flashes of menopause, that's not a given. That's a sign, hey, maybe we need to slow down and honor this a bit. Maybe there's, our metabolism has changed. Maybe we need to make some changes in our diet or what we're putting into our body, the amount of water we drink, the amount of exercise, the schedule of our day. I see a lot of clients in studio practice for menopause, and almost all of them, I would say 3 out of 4, have no more hot flashes while seeing me. So it's not a given. This isn't something you have to live with, but it is something that you need to listen to.
I will say the whole hot flashes reminds me very much of the toxic culture of motherhood, because that's where I live, is like the toxic culture of motherhood and womanhood. And so I'm like so opted out of that. And I don't want to say I'm newer to this hormone stuff. It's just not my area of expertise. So when people say things like that, I'm like, yeah, it's the exact same thing. Like you have to choose to opt out of it, because if you have a belief, hot flashes are normal. You're like, no, it could be culturally normal, but it is not actually normal for your body.
Yeah. And I was in that with the motherhood. I was that glass of wine at 5 o'clock to cope with the stress. And that wreaked havoc on me in so many areas. But it's what's normal and it's what's expected.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly toxic. So,
oh, yes. So I obviously attract a lot of people who have similar beliefs and values, which is probably why we get along, where you're like, I didn't accept that answer, right? Because you have to be a little bit of a rebel or a trailblazer to, I don't want to say swim upstream, but to choose a different lifestyle for yourself. So I also find it interesting that, so I wrote down in your teens and 20s. So it's almost, I'm always finding this through line of how we are literally remembering like who we were. Like as a child, I used to get the crystal books all the time. I was not taught about energy healing. I was not taught about crystals. It was just something I was attracted to when I would go to my scholastic, book fair at school, or the diaries. And then as an adult, you catch yourself doing these things again and you're like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. Like there's a correlation. So yeah, I'm curious I'm always like, I'm curious your perspective, but like what that is for you. Cause it seems like this has been in your life. Not only did your, mother struggle with this, but it's always been an interest of yours.
Yeah. I don't know why. I haven't been able to figure out the why I'm drawn to this, but I always have been. So it may go into a bit of, life purpose type stuff where I was, my home environment, and then also having this drive created a environment for me to grow and thrive into the role I am now. Like there's a sense of like meant to be-ness, I guess, with it.
I always think too, children pick their parents. Like I have that as a belief, whether it's like on a higher level of like a spiritual contract. And it's, and I always say that your problem child is your greatest teacher, because here you are as the child of a woman who's having these migraines, and you're just like, there is another way, right? And you become this. And oftentimes we're mirroring back to our parents. It's like we're their gift if they're willing to open to receive.
Yeah. And it's interesting because my mom didn't drink the teas I brought home. She didn't do the exercises, but I kept going. I kept trying. That didn't stop me.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because that's their journey, and that's, where they were never told that there were other options, maybe in a phase where there was more openness to that. Yeah. Which,
what's intriguing about that when you think about it, we always have, I don't want to say the gifts or solutions in front of us. It's whether we're choosing to see them or not. So oftentimes we can feel really stuck or really blocked in our lives. And yet there you are, like, here's a tea, here's a whatever. And then, we may have a belief like that tea is not going to do anything. That's crap. That's not going to do anything. I'm going to put all my power and energy over here. So yeah, you have to have a lot of stillness in your life to be able, and self-awareness to reflect and say, not this. Like, this is contrast. This is not alignment. It's not my life purpose to suffer. It's not, just because I'm a woman and I'm taking care of children doesn't mean I need to be okay with the cultural expectations. And I think that's where the conversation is shifting. I see this a lot. I mean, that's the world I live in, but the government is definitely not going to save us, and neither is somebody else. We really need to make those daily shifts.
And we need visibility. People need to see other people embracing the belief that we don't have to feel like crap, so that they can start to open their eyes to that as well. Because if you grow up and that's all you're told, for some of us, we might not believe it off the bat for, whatever reason, whatever little bugs inside of us, giving us that thought. But for most people, if all you've ever been told is that feeling like crap is how you're meant to be, it's really hard to break out of that belief. So the more people that can be out there, perpetuating the dialogue that we don't have to feel like crap, we can feel good. There are solutions in many cases. That's so important.
I've gotten to a point in my life, definitely recovering rescuer and helper. And I think a lot of us nurturers, healers, helpers, want to help and give and do. And I know that that's something I really teach and try to drill into people. And I'm sure you're like, yes, I'm getting that loud and clear, Heather. I've gotten to a point now that I know the greatest act of service I can do to my children, or gift to my children, my partner, my mother, my community, is to become and role model. And that feels so much lighter. And we can still get into the fixer and helper and over deliver and do all of that, but catching yourself and coming back, because part of the reason why I started doing what I was doing when I started my business, and I really had a hard time finding role models that were raising children and running successful businesses. It was very difficult. And even the women that I looked up to in the industry were burnt out, and they were like, it is what it is, but I'm just going to push through. And I think things have definitely changed in the last 10 years, but it's that messy middle is like, you can have that duality and keep choosing every day to feel good.
I think your work was key in that for me, almost giving me permission to be able to do these things and make time and prioritize myself and not accept the burnout. Because even though the dialogue might be shifting, it's still not the primary dialogue out there. I think you stand out in that way. And I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I think the becoming aspect of it, like, I see a lot of people, I just want to help these types of people, or I want to do this. And I'm like, awesome. The research shows that the best parenting strategy, the best role, is being a role model, the best, whatever that is. And when I see leaders, and I say leaders, AKA business owners or people who want to support other people, who are like, I want to help these types of people. And I'm like, you have not actually solved that problem yet in your life. So you cannot do that. And nobody will take you seriously. And it's so disheartening because I'm like, we have to understand that if we want to create change, we have to first be willing to create that change in ourselves, not perfectly, right? Because I definitely don't show up perfectly. And I'm like, listen, there's more we have to do. I don't actually know how to answer that question for you, but I have been in your situation where you got to face a fear and work through it anyways. So yeah, becoming is a beautiful thing, and it is wildly emotionally uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk, I want to talk about the work that you do when it comes to hormonal migraines. And I know you work that, I would say that's like your primary focus, but you do a lot of other things. And the success that your clients have seen, like, I just want you to like rave about your magic for a little bit. And then we'll let people know where they can connect with you.
Yeah, I've definitely been niching down into the hormonal migraine area just because I see a huge need there. A lot of people who I interact with were like, oh, okay, I didn't know there was something that can help that. It's also an area where a lot of the traditional migraine medications don't work as well for the hormonal triggered migraines. And it's, something that I was able to fix and like, oh man, I just used the word fix.
See, I like how you were like, I could catch myself. I do it all the time.
See, still, but it was something that I was able to work through myself. So I played around with it. I did do some study into facial reflexology, facelift massage, and acupressure just to strengthen all of the lifestyle, body, nutrition changes that can also help. Mm-hmm. And then I took on a bunch of case studies. And the people that were my case studies, year and a half ago, they're going, I would say 6 to 8 months now without any migraines.
That's amazing.
Pretty much across the board. They do still have some practices to keep up with, but it's nothing crazy for most of them. I really look at the individual because we're all going to have different factors into why our body is sending us the signal. So the migraines aren't the problem. The migraines are your body communicating that there's something else going on in your body that we can better support.
I love the fact that pain is a communication, that it is not a way of being. It's the body saying, it's like I always say it's like a child tantrum, right? Like it's an emotional tantrum. And it's like, pay attention to me, please, please, please. And then we're like, stop it, stop it, stop it. And, I got to numb, got to let go. And, it's just such a beautiful thing when you see it like that, like, oh, my body's talking to me today. Let me listen. Let me do the work to listen, seek support, get the help that you need. It is mind-blowing to me because migraines, I've never personally had chronic migraines, but I remember being in physical pain. Like I had like deep, deep bone pain in treatment, and living with chronic pain is, I would say, one of the worst pains in your, like, that's awful. It's debilitating. Like your relationships suffer, your career suffers, obviously your mental and emotional health, your physical health, your shame, like everything is just lowering the bar, and it puts like a huge weighted blanket on your life. So I can see the impact of the work that you do, even if someone's like, I do not trust that this is going to work. It's like, listen, you've tried all these other things. At least give it a try. So the fact that somebody can go months without having a hormonal migraine, with, I don't want to say little effort, but consistent
baby
micro habits is a beautiful thing, and a beautiful gift. So,
and I see these beautiful transformations with clients. Like, one's been able to start the business they wanted. Another one has better relationships. I mean, I got feedback from their husband.
Mm.
So I get a lot of joy.
I love the partner testimonials
Yeah.
because sometimes when you're in it, like you're in your own life, the partner or people around you really can see the true transformation that most of the time we can't. Like, hey, have you noticed you haven't had a migraine? So that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Sorry, what else were you going to say?
Oh, no, that was it. Yeah. But yeah, so I tend to work with clients I like to work in a 12-week container because that gives us the chance to first identify what the body's telling us. We go through acute support. So if you have migraines in that time, there are techniques we can use. I work primarily energetically, so it's a lot of breath work, visualization, acupressure, and self-massage. So you can see those those more immediate reductions in pain and intensity. But then it gives us the time to start implementing changes and then helping to lock those in and help make them regular parts of your life and your practice. But I do also offer a consultation only option where you can connect with me and I give you a written plan for a 12-week process to go through. And then you can take it from there on your own if you choose. But,
perfect. So where can people find you if they want to reach out? I'm sure you're on Instagram and on a website. So let them know specifically.
Okay. I am on Instagram at Willow, WILLOW _therapies, THERAPIES. I have lives I do every Friday with a guided routine, add a bit of calm and ritual into your week. I'm on the web at willowtherapies.ca, and that's the hub to find info on my services.
Christine, thank you so much. I hope, I know this conversation has been a wealth of knowledge, and I always encourage people just to even find you on Instagram to connect and send you a message of like their biggest takeaway and aha moment. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
There it is. You just listened to the Emotionally Uncomfortable podcast. If you want to take this conversation to the next level, head on over to our private Facebook group community, heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. That's heatherchauvin.com/Facebook. Also, if you are a huge fan of this show, please rate and review it on iTunes. Every review helps another woman like you take back control of how she wants to feel and become emotionally uncomfortable. I truly believe the better we feel, the more alive we become. This is how we are going to change the world. And if you've been watching me for a while, if you've been on the fence and you're curious, how can Heather help me? Head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me to check out my mastery and mastery business coaching programs. That's heatherchauvin.com/work with me.